Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Today's episode is brought to you by Your Clear Next Step and the Changemaker Certification Program.
Would you like to save time by solving the right problem sooner with a realistic and measurable plan? Reduce overwhelm by finding more sustainably productive ways to work? Improve employee morale by creating more positive workdays from within? Stay competitive by tightening your turn or increasing your agility in adapting to changing customer demands? If you said yes to those things, then we have the solution for you.
Interested in becoming a changemaker? Give us a call at 515-442-0545.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Even Better podcast. I am so delighted that you've taken a few moments to listen and to join us today. We've got some great insights for you. I am joined today by our guest, Paige Arnof-Fenn. Paige, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sinikka. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I am too. Just in the few minutes that we've had a chance to connect and to prepare for this, I am just thrilled with the insights that we're going to be able to offer our listeners. So today, the Even Better podcast is part of our ongoing mission here at Your Clear Next Step to help us have even better work days so that together we can co-create better communities. And I have just in the little bit of time that we've had to get to know each other, I see you experiencing that firsthand. Like the things that we're going to talk about have impacted your life in such a way that you've had even better work days because of what you're going to share today. And I can't wait for our listeners to hear this.
Me neither. No, let's dig in.
Let's dig in. So this is great. So Paige, a little bit about you. Let's talk about you. You're joining us. Some of us who are listening are here in the Midwest. I'm dialing in from the central part of Iowa. You are not in Iowa today. You're joining us from the East Coast. Tell us a little bit about your story.
So I graduated from high school in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm a Southerner, and I went out to the West Coast for college. And I've lived in a lot of different places. I moved around a lot in my early career for jobs, bouncing around from New York to Washington, D.C., to Cincinnati, to Atlanta, LA, San Francisco, Washington, D.C. I feel like I've moved back and forth and back and forth, but I've actually been in the Boston area for, wow, like 25, 26 years now.
Wow.
Which is funny because when my husband and I took jobs here in 1999, we thought we'd be here for 1 or 2 years. So I think the joke is on me.
Indeed. So there you are in the Boston area, one of my favorite places here in the US. I'm a big fan. So there in the Boston area, you are doing work, but you are not doing work, as we talked about, you're not doing work in the field in which you were originally trained or in the field in which your first career happened.
That is very true. So I was an economics major in college in the 80s, and my first job out of college was on Wall Street. Michael Douglas had just won the Oscar for the first Wall Street movie, and when I saw it, I got completely hooked. And I made a 2-year commitment to go be a financial analyst at an investment bank. I had been, as an economics major, I was president of the Econ Association. My dad had gotten an econ degree. Both my grandfathers worked in commercial banks. My dad did. So I really thought that was the path I was on. But I realized very quickly in my first month in New York City, I was very good at the work, but I didn't love the work. And so it wasn't the career that I thought it was going to be. It makes for a really fun 2-hour movie. But, at that era, you were working, 18, 20-hour days. It was crazy. And I was really looking for a very different quality of life and just the content of the work I was doing. I found very tedious, very analytical, and I was looking for more of a creative outlet. So I decided to go back and get an MBA to kind of rebrand myself in business school. And what I learned after spending 2 years at the bank, a girlfriend and I were traveling before we left to go to grad school.
Mhm.
And she helped me realize that the things that I really enjoyed about the work were not the finance parts of the job, but more the marketing parts of the job. There were elements of my job as a financial analyst that were very much in the function of marketing.
Okay,
Uh,
wait. What do you mean by that? How did she help you figure this out?
so literally, we decided we were going to travel for a few weeks in Europe before we went back to get our MBAs. And when we're chatting on the beach and walking around these great world capitals, she said to me, "You're going back, right?" And I said, "Oh my God, no, there is no way I'm going to go back to this bank. I don't want to do anything like this for a career. It's awful." She's like, "How can you say that? They paid us so well and you're so good at it." And she definitely wanted to go back. And I said, there were only three things about my job that I enjoyed at all and that I found fun and interesting. And she said, "Well, what did you like?" And I said, as soon as we finished a transaction, when we helped a company get bought or sold or raise money, issue debt. At the end of that, I got to run an ad in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and tell everybody in business that our bank had helped this client, complete the transaction.
Okay.
And then I got to plan a closing dinner because that celebrated the deal being done. And then at the dinner, I got to present everyone on the team with like a present, a little deal toy. My girlfriend's like rolling her eyes and laughing at me. She said, "Paige, I got a news flash for you. You are not a finance person. Everything you liked about our job were not finance things. They were marketing things." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I had never taken a marketing class in my life. And I didn't even know what marketing really was. But she really kind of convinced me that like you should take marketing and you should try marketing. So wouldn't you know it, my very first semester in the MBA program, there was a required class on marketing, and I got the top grade in the class. So I thought, maybe she's smarter than I realized. And then I got a summer internship in marketing and had a great experience. And they made me an offer to come back after I finished my job, after I finished my degree. So I took them up on the offer, and that was my job for the first 3.5 years after grad school. And I've been in marketing ever since. So, in fact, she was absolutely right. And what I think appealed to me so much is having a quantitative training and background is a real competitive advantage in marketing because, understanding the data and the numbers is
Yeah,
really helpful. And so you really get to use both sides of your brain, the analytical side and the creative side. And when you have great training in both of those areas, that's really where the magic happens. And that's where you can find yourself with a real competitive advantage with people who are just creative or just analytical, when you can marry both sides of your brain and be authentically yourself, do the things that are really good that only you can do. I feel like I got to bring my whole self to the job, and I just loved every day. So I went from kind of drudgery of just being buried in data and numbers to going in every day, having like a lot of energy and excitement to do everything under the marketing umbrella.
absolutely. So the things that you described there, right? There's advertising, there's event planning, there's promotional products. Like, oh my goodness, these are not what I think of when I think of investment bankers or accounting
Exactly, but
functions at all.
Exactly, but those were really important when the deals were done. These were
Sure.
all really important elements to showcase our expertise and let our clients and let our competitors know we're really good at this and we got a great deal. Everybody's happy. Everyone made a lot of money. It was a successful engagement. And so that's a really important part of it. But, the finance was also important, but being able to really do all the marketing functions is where I really came to life.
Absolutely. So this is just such a great example of being able to, in your case, you had this deep dive training, you had this moment early in your career where you had an appeal, something appealed to you. So you tried it and you lived with it for a couple of years and went, oh, I'm not having great work days. I don't love this. And then had the opportunity to bounce those ideas, bounce that thought off of someone who knew you and was kind of outside of your brain, that was listening to your thoughts and listening to what you said, listening to you who was not you, right? It's so important sometimes when we're thinking about our careers and we're thinking about the impact of our day to not just stay inside our own heads. It's so important to bounce these ideas off of someone else, a trusted friend, an advisor, a mentor, a coach, someone else to talk it through and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what's going on. Here's what I love about my job. Here's what I don't love about my job. And then to have someone who can say, hey, what you're just describing, these are things that, here's what I heard you say. And here's the expertise that I can bring to the table. This belongs in this domain and this function. And she was able to say that back to you. So critically important. And then open your eyes and then be willing to take that risk and be able to say,
Absolutely.
yeah, all right, let's give it a whirl.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said, you can be too close to it, or you just don't have the experience, the insight, or perspective to realize that there are very transferable skills. It's not like a lane that doesn't cross into other lanes. It's just like, where do you want your priority to be? I still use a lot of data in marketing when we do market research and, crunching numbers and seeing, all the data that you collect now. It's unbelievable through online marketing and social media. So being able to be confident with numbers and being strong in finance is really important, but you don't have to do that every day, day in, day out. There are a lot of ways to leverage the skills and experience and use that in other areas where it's really, again, it's authentic to you. I love to do, communications, finding the right words and pictures to tell a story is really what makes me kind of come alive.
Love
And
this.
I feel like, when your clients, when your customers can can find the confidence in telling their story in a unique way that makes them stand out, that's really where the magic happens today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love this. And as I think about just listening to your story, the ability to discern in your own mind, how are my days working? How am I showing up in my best? You said something else that I think is really important. And in your story, you talked about the fact that they were paying you plenty of money and the recognition that the pursuit of the dollar is not all there is. And you were on Wall Street, for heaven's sakes. And the pursuit of the dollar has got to be pretty powerful. Having not been there, I can only speak from what I see in the movies, right? So the pursuit of the dollar has got to be pretty tempting. And even here in the Midwest, right? There is that temptation that we have to pursue the dollar. And I wonder if we've been sold a bill of goods. It's not really personal satisfaction and personal joy can be sucked dry if all we're pursuing is cash.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, when you're graduating from college, you've been a starving student for a long time, you're very tempted when someone offers you a hefty paycheck. But when you're living kind of right in the belly of New York City in a finance job, everybody's making a lot of money. And you look around and you realize we're all working so hard and they almost have to pay you a lot of money because you're trading off your life. You're working 7 days a week, 12-hour days or short days on Wall Street. You'd be getting home really late at night, pulling all-nighters sometimes. And, what's the money for? And I think a lot of people, they had fancy houses and fancy cars and they took great vacations. They didn't seem that happy to me.
Mm.
And I would look at my boss and my boss's boss and my boss's boss's boss, and I didn't really want the life that they had. And I think in a way, learning that lesson at age 21, 22, 23 is really important because I never took a job just for a paycheck. The Wall Street jobs were the highest paying jobs coming out of college. Those were the people that got the biggest salaries. And when I graduated from business school and I went into a marketing, position, I think of the business people, people went to Wall Street and hedge funds and venture capital and big fancy, titles and big fancy companies. And I think I was probably one of the lowest paid people coming out of business school, except for people that went into nonprofit. But the thing is, as I've moved up the ladder in corporate marketing and startup marketing and starting my own business, and when you find stuff you love doing and you're working a lot, you're doing stuff you love, you don't think of it just for the paycheck, and your life is more in balance. You've got more of a holistic approach. And I think especially if you can start your own business and you find a sustainable niche that you can really thrive, you realize you don't need $100 million to be happy. You can build a really good business and work, intensely, but not 24/7, 7 days a week. You can have a nightlife, and you can have friends and take vacations and do things. And, you don't have to make all the money that you can make. If you just look at your life in a more holistic way, I feel like I've just got better balance and just better, just every day is fun, and I get out of bed and I'm excited. I'm not dreading going to work, or I'm not having to, drag myself in because I'm so exhausted and sleep deprived. I actually enjoy the day. I feel like I'm really making a difference in my clients' lives. I'm helping them build really good, solid, sustainable businesses and helping them thrive. And I get a lot of joy from that.
That's fantastic. And I will tell you, it is evident in what you're doing, because when Haley, our podcast producer, when she met you, it had to have been moments after she jumped off the call with you that she immediately reached out to me and said, "Oh, Sinikka, you've got to meet Paige. You're going to love her. She just exudes this joy and this confidence, and she's making such a positive difference." Right? It's what comes off of what like just comes out your pores, if you will, is this sense of satisfaction and of delight. You are having great work days. So let's fast forward to what you're doing today, Paige. What is it that you do in a nutshell? How do you have these good work days? You alluded a bit to starting your own business. You accelerated in your career, and you grew up the ranks and went into corporate marketing, and now you're doing your own thing. What is it that you do?
I am. So, after 9/11, I hung out a shingle and I started my own marketing business. And we help organizations at all ends of the spectrum, from pre-revenue early stage startups where they need a logo, a tagline, a website. They're at the very formative stages, to big Fortune 500 companies and everything in between. The majority of our clients are kind of mid-market, emerging market companies, but we work with nonprofits. We work across all sectors. So we're kind of industry agnostic, and we're a virtual marketing department for companies that need access to great marketing talent on kind of an as needed outsourced basis.
Mm.
So I never get bored. We're working with all kinds of organizations. And what I love is that, you know, we get to pick and choose who we want to work with. It's, when you join a big company and you're in the marketing department, they tell you what you have to market.
Mhm.
With me, it's my business. And if I always say, if they can sell me, I can sell anybody. So if I get excited about what they're doing, whether it's a consumer product, a business, professional service, health and wellness, technology, healthcare, whatever it is, I love helping organizations that are trying to make a positive difference in the world. And I don't want to just work with people that have tons of money. If they're an early stage company and they haven't really started yet, we can work with small budgets. I love the fact that, we can do a lot with a little.
Mhm.
And it's a nice balance. When you look at your client roster, you have like a portfolio of people you're working with. Some of them have kind of very established brands and big budgets, and some of them you have to be very scrappy and resourceful and do more guerrilla on the ground kind of online marketing, digital marketing that's kind of quick and dirty. And I get to do things at all ends of the spectrum. And when it's your business, you can decide who you want to help. And so what I love is, every day I get up, I'm excited by looking at the calendar, who I'm working with. And if it's not a good fit, we can shake hands and part ways. We've had to fire clients who ended up not really being the best connection for us. Our core values weren't aligned. And again, if you're working in an organization, you might not have that choice, but when it's your business, you get to choose the kinds of people and the kinds of businesses you want to work with. And I really want to get up every day working with and for people that I want to help be successful and to help and to know that my DNA can help them succeed. So, I love that about the fact that, we've been doing this now for 23 years under Mavens and Moguls, my company. And I'm very proud of the stories that we can tell of all the various businesses from very small to very big and how we've helped make a difference.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've heard you describe is and that Haley was sharing in from her conversation with you is that the understanding our own brand is just one of the trademarks sort of idea that you bring to the table. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So it's interesting because, it's not uncommon for a small business to say to me, we're not really a brand, we're not famous. People think of brands like, the car companies or, Beyonce or LeBron James or Taylor Swift, Serena Williams, like those people are brands that, big and, they run ads on television or the Super Bowl or, in the magazines.
Right.
The truth is that those are brands, but in today's world, uh, where we all live online, and it really is more of a digital economy now. We're all walking around with these phones in our pockets. If you don't think of yourself as a brand today, you have to be very careful because I think everybody's a brand today, not just the quote famous people, but if you have a business, even if you're an employee in a big company, you need to brand yourself. You need to stand for something. People need to know who you are, what you stand for. Because if you don't brand yourself, other people are going to brand you instead. And that might not be the message that you want to be known for. So, branding today is kind of everything. If you're not a brand, you're a commodity, and commodities compete on price. And that's a very dangerous place to be because all you can do is lower your price. And if you do that, that's not going to be a sustainable business long term.
Yeah, and even as an individual, that's not sustainable. So this whole idea of brand. So each one of us, regardless of whether we're a business owner or whether we're a person working within a business, we each have a
Right.
brand.
And even if you're interviewing for a job, you have to think like, what am I offering this company? What do I want to stand for? What do I want to be known for? How are
Mm.
they going to remember me? How is my resume going to stand out? As a business owner, whether you're selling a product or a service, when your customer or client has a problem that your product or service can help them solve, how are they going to think of you first? What real estate do you need to own in your customer or client's brain so that every time your product or service can solve their problem, you're the first thing that pops into their brain? That's a brand.
That's a brand. Well, that's really an interesting way of putting it. What real estate do I need to own in their brain so that I'm the first one that pops in mind when they have a problem to solve? Oh,
And
that's
and brands are it's a relationship. You want to emotionally connect with your audience. You
mm,
want them to have a warm, connection. What do they think of? What are the two or three things that you stand for and want to be known for? And if you don't know, you can do some kind of informal market research and ask people who know you personally, professionally, at work, maybe, in your hobby, where you worship, how do people think of you? Are there themes? Is it a consistent brand? I think the best brands show up consistently. I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make today, with all the technology and tools and social media platforms, sometimes people try to be different things in different places.
mm.
And that can be very confusing. A brand is about building trust with your audience. And if you show up differently at different places and times, it can be very confusing. So, think about like of all the platforms that you're on, is there a theme that's emerging, or is it just like schizophrenic? Like, on Facebook, you're wearing a bikini and you're on the beach and you're doing crazy, drinking and partying and being very silly with like your college buddies. And then, on LinkedIn, you're very buttoned up and you're very professional. And then on X or Twitter, you're being very snarky. Like, what version of you is going to show up at the meeting? And who, do I really want to have this person on my podcast? I don't know. The snarky one, maybe not is that, I don't really enjoy that humor. Or am I going to hear about all the crazy vacation things that they did? That's not really the right image for my business. So, you know, people, you have to understand that everything you do communicates. When you show up, how are you dressed? What are you driving? How do you look? How do you talk? If you're going to be professional, if you're on LinkedIn, you look really buttoned up. When people see you, if you're on the soccer field, if you're in line at the grocery, if you're at the gas station, do you look the part? Is that the image that people, I'm not saying you need to be dressed in, a suit and tie and fancy shoes, but, you know, you do need to look buttoned up and, as they say in Europe, smart casual. You want to look professional. You don't want to look like ratty sweatpants and, a torn sweatshirt and your hair's, in a bun and, looking kind of crazy. People are like, wait, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't recognize you. Oh my God. Like I had no idea. If you think about like the early days of COVID when we were all at home and we were all meeting on Zoom and a lot of people were meeting, they would sit on their bed in their gym clothes, doing group calls. And once you see the bed's unmade, there's stacks of laundry everywhere, the place is a mess, you kind of can't unsee that. And at work, that person would be so professional and so buttoned up. And now you're thinking, which version of that person is the real person? Like, I'm not sure I have the same image of that person in my mind anymore.
Yeah.
So I would just say, be very thoughtful because again, you want to control the narrative. You want to dictate what it is that your brand stands for and wants to be known for. And if you're getting feedback from people that's not consistent or not the image that you want, you need to make sure that all those messages come through in everything that you do on your website, on your business card, on your LinkedIn profile. Make sure they all tie together and tell a consistent story.
Absolutely. So as we think about this, so brand is so important, and I don't think there's any illusion anymore of privacy. I don't think there's any illusion anymore that they won't find us if they want to look for us. Like if they choose to look, they'll find us. That's just the way
Especially
it
with
is
a
now.
name like yours or a name like mine. If they Google us, we're really going to show up.
We're out there. Like there's no hiding.
Right.
And
If your name is Bob Jones or Susan Smith, they don't know who you are, but with your name and my name, they're going to find us.
they're gonna find us. They're gonna find us. So let's talk about it in your case. And I'm gonna get back to your story here, and then let's weave that into the secret sauce that you bring to the table here, Paige. Because you found something that's true about you. You've got an analytical side, and then you've got this creative side, and you were able to bring them together. When we're building our brand, whether it's our brand for a business, whether it's a brand for our department or our team, or whether it's our brand for ourselves personally and individually, because it depends on, as you're listening to this, you could be listening as a business owner or a leader of a team or department, or you could be listening as for yourself individually. But as we look at this, what counsel would you offer? What is your secret sauce, if you will, if you think about what Paige brings to the table, that is your nuggets of expertise or nuggets of wisdom as one thinks about building their brand. What certainly the consistency is important. How do you get to that consistency?
So you have to look at, as you would for a business or a product, you have to look at yourself in the context of the competitive landscape.
Mm.
So do your homework. That's in marketing, we call it a SWOT analysis, SWOT, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. Where do you stack up versus other people in playing in the same sandbox?
Mhm.
Where are you special, unique, and different? What do you do better than anyone else? What are those strengths? One thing I used to hate in my corporate life is you'd have to go through your annual performance review and they'd say, you're really good at X, Y, and Z, but we need to get better at A, B, and C. And my feeling was always, A, B, and C are just not things I enjoy doing. I don't think I'm ever going to be the best person doing those.
Mhm.
If I'm good at these other things, let me do the stuff where I can shine and really kill it. Because if I do those, I'm going to be better than everybody
Mhm.
every day of the week. And so I always say to people, like, the reason I think my company has been so successful for the past 2+ decades is I have a great team and everybody does what they are the best at. So
Mhm.
they show up every day doing the things that they love doing, that they do better than anybody else. So when we're putting together a team, everybody's like an expert at what they do. They're not trying to improve an area that's considered weak, or they're trying to get better at something that, is just not as natural and intuitive to them. I don't think that's a way to stand out today. I think let people do what they do best, where they can really thrive, and that's where the magic happens. And so when you get a team of a handful of people and everybody's doing the piece that they're just like magic at, that's where the special sauce kind of reveals, because everybody's contributing, and the days fly, you're not looking at the clock, and you end up, I always joke when we put together a proposal for a client, we have a pretty good sense of how much time it's going to take and what the budget will require. And at the end of the project, almost always the client will say, God, I feel like we y'all worked so much harder than, I thought this was going to take, so much time, but I feel like you just spent even more time. And I'd say, the thing is, we're all a little bit type A neurotic, I think. And, when you do stuff you love doing, you lose track of time. And it's like you're in your zone working away and you look up and you've probably put in, I don't know, 20% more time than you budgeted for, but you were having fun doing it and you just
Mhm.
got carried away. And that really shows. I think that comes out in the output, and the client says, wow, like this is amazing, we could have never come up with this, but like everybody was contributing and we were kind of in the zone, and before you know it, all the roads converge, all the pieces of the puzzle fit together, and then it's like, wow, that was fun, it was easy, and look, that the week is done, like we weren't dragging our heels. You end up in a situation where like the energy multiplies. It's not a drain,
Yeah.
it's like a multiplier.
Yeah.
And, people look back and they're just proud to have been associated with it. And they were having fun doing it because they were doing the stuff that they found the most exciting.
So I'm going to pause there because that's really significant because it brings up two things. One is the human aspect of it, that we ourselves are having better work days, right? We're enjoying our work more because we're doing the stuff we love. But there's a really tactical, practical return on investment aspect here, right? There's a numerical financial impact to our businesses, that if we align people to the work that they love, they outperform expectations. Like you just said it yourself, 20% more. And the customers go, wow, instead of, oh, great. They go, wow, that's fantastic. Oh, good. You got what we were expecting. Wow, you delighted us, because we aligned people to the work that they love doing. If we align people to the work that they authentically love, if we align people to their authentic selves, holy smokes, like the woo, the wow factor. We're looking at a 20% uptick.
Absolutely. And, that's when I feel like those clients don't just, feel like, thank you for your help, this was great. they become champions and advocates, and they refer more business because they feel like they've gotten such great value. And that's when, you feel like, they're helping you, like they're your salespeople. Like you're not having to advertise. People say, "Oh my God, I just ran into so and so at an event or a conference. They were raving about the work you did for them. Can we talk? I want to tell you what's going on." And so putting in that extra effort, doing what you do when you're in the zone, that pays back in spades. Like that's where you really feel like you're offering such great value, and they feel it. They feel like they got the best deal.
Yes. And at the end of the day, you didn't work harder because you were loving what you did. They won because they got a better product. They got a little bit more than they expected. And you don't have to pay for extra sales work because they're championing your product and services as free sales. Holy smokes. And then you get to help somebody else. So somebody else wins
Exactly.
because they get to benefit from that same level of energy and enthusiasm that you bring to your products and services.
Bingo.
It's a
That's it.
win-win.
That's it.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Okay, we are running out of time. If we were to wrap this up and we're looking at final nuggets of insights that you would want to make sure somebody heard about building a brand and being your authentic self, what else? What one last nugget would you want to offer?
So I would just say, really seriously think of yourself as a brand. It's not narcissistic. Google yourself, see what pops up. Do you like what pops up? Is it digital dirt, or is it stuff that you want to be known for and want to be remembered for? Be honest with yourself. I think when you really find your authentic voice, find the right words and pictures to tell your story. And if you need help, find people who love doing it to help you. Because, like me, I couldn't see for myself what it was that was going to make me happy, what it was that I was really strong at. Sometimes you need, those mastermind, those coaches, those people in your inner circle who can kind of watch and observe and figure out and connect the dots in a way that you might have not done on your own. But there are a lot of great people out there, friends, professionals, colleagues, that can help you and be honest. I always tell people, when clients come to us and say, "I don't understand why we're not doing better. Everyone tells me they love our product or service, but we're not selling very much." I'm like, "Great, let me see your market research." And they're like, "Well, we didn't do research, but I've talked to so many people." I said, "Who'd you talk to?" "My mother, my neighbor, my friend, my cousin, my husband, my sister." That's not market research. Those are people that love you and don't want to hurt your feelings. And they're never going to tell you the baby's ugly. If you want research, you have to talk to people who are actually in your target audience, people that really would buy your product or service or refer others to it. And if you're not asking good questions in a way that's objective, it's just garbage in, garbage out. So, you know, be honest about your strengths, be honest about what you're good at. And if you need help, find those people around you that can steer you straight and be honest with you so that, you can really figure out what is your special sauce? Where are you not just good, but great, and stick to that. And when you find that, that's really when things start to hum.
Love it. Love it. Paige, if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you and they wanted to connect further with you, of course, they can reach out to us and we will connect them to you. How else could they reach you?
So website of my company, mavensandmoguls.com, mavensandmoguls.com. LinkedIn is my kind of social media platform of choice. You can see my name is hyphenated, but on LinkedIn, it's all smushed together. And as one of my clients always says, because my company name has an ampersand, my last name is hyphenated. She's like, "They're just too many words. All I remember are Paige and Mavens." So if you Google Paige and Mavens, thank goodness for search engine optimization, I'll pop right up.
Fantastic. It said like a true marketer. That's outstanding. So this would not be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask my trademark question, which is what's making you even better these days, Paige?
I mean, I feel like, you know, the people around me keep me honest and make me even better every day. My husband, my colleagues, my clients, people that ask tough questions that push you. It's, when you get feedback, good, bad, or ugly, take it as a gift, because, people that are telling you things that maybe are a little uncomfortable, or that are asking you to do something outside your zone, that really is an opportunity to learn more, to press on, to get to get better at something every day. So, I feel like having a growth mindset, pushing yourself to learn and grow, it only good things can come from that if you're open.
Indeed. I love it. Paige, thank you so much for your time today and for your insights. This has been an absolute joy.
No, for me too. Thanks a ton. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope that this has been a great part of your day. Thanks so much for listening. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.